It was an exclusive, invite-only BYO foreign policy party. But the president has piked.
I'm postponing the Australia portion of the trip.
Biden had been scheduled to drop in down under for a Quad meeting next week. Japan, India, Australia and the US due to discuss keeping the peace in the Indo-Pacific.
You know the thing.
But a fire on the home front has grounded Air Force One.
And I spoke today with Prime Minister Albanese of Australia and a short time ago and let him know what was going on.
He expressed very much his disappointment at being unable to come to Sydney.
The reason? A stalemate on debt ceiling negotiations in DC. The debt ceiling is the limit set by Congress for how much debt the government is allowed to accrue. It reached that limit in January this year. Now Joe Biden wants his credit extended, but Republicans are refusing to budge beyond 47.1 trillion Australian dollars without some spending cut concessions.
It's unfortunate we are where we are.
Default is not an option. America pays its debts, pays its bills, but the country we've never defaulted on our debt and we never will.
Unless a deal is reached by June the 1st, the Treasury is in danger of running out of money. Federal bills go unpaid, repayments fall into arrears, and everything from national parks to social security checks grind to a halt. The debt ceiling is raised regularly, rarely resulting in a political crisis. But this time, economists fear a default could trigger a global meltdown.
American families and businesses have worked hard to mount an historic economic recovery, and a default would reverse all of the hard-earned progress.
So, can Biden
Finish the job.
Or could this congressional catfight leave the global economy with a red, white and blue-black eye?
Joining us now is US journalist Bill Wyman. Bill, the debt ceiling is raised every couple of years, so why do we have all this drama now?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious why. That people should understand that the debt ceiling doesn't have anything to do with spending more money. Congress has already spent the money. But because of some little box that needs to be ticked in the U.S. government accounting, certain people in the House of Representatives, meaning the Republican majority, can hold up the whole mess. And it's really hard to think of an analogy, but think of it as, your partner and you decide to buy a house. Okay, 3 years on, your partner says, I'm going to stop paying the payments. And you go, well, we have to pay the payments. And he or she says, well, I'm not going to anymore. And you go, if you do that, we're going to lose the house. And they say, well, we shouldn't have bought the house. And you should have said, well, you should have said that before we bought the house, because if you don't pay the payments, we're going to lose the house. And that's really what's going on in Washington. They're holding a gun to the government's head. And there is absolutely nothing substantive at stake. And that's why it's so frustrating.
Bill, is there any danger of there not being a deal reached? Because, a couple of days ago, Joe Biden was like, yep, off to the Quad talks, and now that's been canned. So what's happening?
Well, it's a very complicated situation. And the reason is that House of Representatives, of course, is controlled by the Republicans, but they hold it by a very, very slim majority. And it basically means that just about anyone in the Republican caucus, including some of the craziest people who have ever held office in American politics, which is saying something, can just derail the thing. There's strains of anarchy. There's strains of just sort of spoiled brat nonsense. There's strains of craziness and conspiracy theories. And the new House of Representatives Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, is beholden to them.
Well, while we're talking about arguably crazy political power plays, while we have you, Donald Trump. He is set to, he wants to run for office next year. Is that going to happen with his recent scandals and everything?
Well, that's such a great question. And the short answer is yes, it's happening. He's a declared candidate and he's running. And then it raises all these problems. Can you run for president if you're indicted for a crime? The answer is yes. Can you run for president if you've been convicted of a crime? Yes. Donald Trump is unique because he's not someone who's been accused of a crime. He's someone who's been accused credibly of several crimes. Now, the calculus is this. I think the Democrats do want him to run because he should be very, very easy to beat.
And we've just heard that Donald Jr., who is often described as the undiluted version of his dad, he's just announced a speaking tour in July. So what can Australia expect from that?
Yeah, I really want to extend my sympathies to the country as a whole because of that. And I hate to sound partisan. I want to make clear I am not partisan, but the Republican Party is a party of insurrectionists, crazy people, racists, anti-abortion nuts, and Don Jr. is sort of their id. He's just sort of a silly person and a nitwit, and I don't think we really have to take him seriously, but it's unfortunate. It seems like he is going to get a welcome here.
I think that's the first time we've heard nitwit in a
I love it. Bill, thank you so much for taking us through it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.